measure of a powerful woman is the evidence of her changing the very fundamental of our values and our beliefs about each other. During this March, which is set aside to celebrate Women's History Month, we reflect on those leaders that have influenced us the most. One of those that influenced me the most was my mother. Through her example, her words, her uniqueness, her pain, her mental illness, and compassion, she taught me to see others in their essence, to recognize each person's inner spirit. Another that has been a leader for us all is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a warrior for gender equality and told us to fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And with those words, I welcome you to Community Unitarian Universalist Church Online. My name is Jen Mason, and I am one of the worship associates. We are a religious community that inspires the mind and spirit, honors religious freedom, and embraces diversity. Our members minister to each other with love and work for a just society. And today we welcome Pastor Kris Cervantes as she welcomes in the spring solstice while sharing the words and wisdom of women.
Oh, my beloveds, I am confronting my prejudices, my arrogance. I lay myself down in an agony of loathing for people long dead, some my ancestors, ancient and modern, the abusers and the oppressors. I grieve the victims, women the first, the great dividing wall of he, she, built with the bones of those who died in bloody childbirth, bound by violence and its threat, and by the miraculous fact of love, persisting, nevertheless, in all times and all places. The second great schism, no lesser, more grievous in recent fact and recent acts by haters and traitors against those they have harmed. The construct of race and its butcher racism, this is most urgent. For I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles look very different from my own. This morning, we stand together at this crossroads, this intersection, if you will, the place where two great and terrible oppressions meet, the ground zero, populated today by those who are women, femme, and gender diverse, and also they are not white. This intersection, this crossroads, is sacred ground. Let us enter together with reverence, humility, and humor, and our hearts wide open.
As we light this chalice, let us remember that the light in your soul is far greater than the darkness. The inner half of every cloud is bright and shining, and therefore I turn my clouds about and always wear them inside out to show the lining. The thing you must be is yourself, unadulterated, shedding the willingness to journey alone, as though you were made of something hard and unforgivable. You are human. You belong right here, right now. And together, we will chase away the sickness, the secrets, and leave open the possibility that the future is a space for growth. Please join me in saying our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another.
Womanist. 1. From womanish. Opposite of girlish, i.e., frivolous, irresponsible, not serious. A black feminist or feminist of color. From the black folk expression of mothers to female children. You actin' womanish, i.e., like a woman. Usually referring to outrageous, audacious, courageous, or willful behavior. Wanting to know more and in greater depth than is considered good for one. Interested in grown-up doings, acting grown up, being grown up. Interchangeable with another black folk expression. You trying to be grown. Responsible. In charge. Serious. 2. Also, a woman who loves other women, sexually and or non-sexually, appreciates and prefers women's culture, women's emotional flexibility, values tears as a natural counterbalance of laughter, and women's strength. Sometimes loves individual men, sexually and or non-sexually. Committed to survival and wholeness of entire people, male and female. Not a separatist except periodically for health. Traditionally universalist, as in, Mama, why are we brown, pink, and yellow, and our cousins are white, beige, and black? Answer. Well, you know the colored race is just like a flower garden, with every color of flower represented. Traditionally capable, as in, Mama, I'm walking to Canada and I'm taking you and a bunch of other slaves with me. Reply. It wouldn't be the first time. 3. Loves music, loves the dance, loves the moon, loves the spirit, loves love and food and roundness, loves struggle, loves the folk, loves herself, regardless. 4. Womanist is to feminist as purple to lavender.
A light exists in spring, not present on the year at any other period, when March is scarcely here. A color stands abroad on solitary fields that science cannot overtake, but human nature feels. It waits upon the lawn. It shows the furthest tree upon the furthest slope you know. It almost speaks to you. Then as horizons step or noons report away without the formula of sound, it passes and we stay. A quality of loss affecting our content as trade has suddenly encroached upon a sacrament.
The Reverend Dr. Melanie Jones knows how to own a room. Even before that doctor was final and appended, she had a particular ability, a peculiar talent for pinning a student to the chair with her gaze, as though determining whether it's worth it to answer, say, a young white woman in her advanced class on the theology and practice of womanism. Maybe she was figuring out if we were worth it. Lord knows, black women have been doing the emotional labor for white folks for decades, if not centuries. Having done my share of emotional labor for folks in my life, I know it's exhausting. The question asked was, can a white feminist be a womanist? Why would you want to be? Dr. Jones replied after a moment, and there was an awkward pause. Well, I know why. In my heart, I understood the question because I, too, want to be a womanist. As Alice Walker wrote, a womanist loves music, loves dance, loves the moon, loves the spirit, loves love and food and roundness, loves struggle, loves the folk, loves herself, regardless. I don't want to be left out of those traits. I love those things, and Walker's language is dizzying and enticing and charged. But I am not a womanist. Dr. Jones went on. You can call yourself a womanist. Anyone can call themselves anything they want. But I think you should consider why you would want to take that name. Does it feel good? Okay. Does it feel right? Different question. In Alice Walker's presentation of womanism, which you heard earlier, the fourth definition is, womanist is to feminist as purple is to lavender. We white folks, including white feminists, well, we are pretty delicate. We're so sensitive, in fact, that we rarely can stand to be left out of anything. We can't let other folks have their own power, their own chosen spaces, without wanting to enjoy the benefits of their beauty for our own. We may be envious of the rich spirituality, the proud, outspoken music and rage, joy and strength of Black women's voices addressing all women's concerns, misogyny, oppression, violence and its threat. When I attended The Gathering, an explicitly womanist Sunday night service held in Dallas, to which all are welcome, I was welcomed with such good cheer, such kindness, such embraces that I wanted into that community, into that warmth. Of course I want to be a womanist. The problem is that rich and deep and undying emphasis on community, the sweeping glory of womanist preaching, and the underlying endurance that I really envy. Those are the hard-won, unlikely gifts eked out of 400 years of subjugation, slavery, brutality, suppression, and oppression. Community is all important when your communities have been attacked and oppressed for so long, when it seems jarringly easy for those in power to disdain, disregard, and scatter your communities. The rhythms and music of the Black church in America reach back to a melange of Afro-Caribbean music and the work songs of enslaved people. The power of much Black preaching lies in its daring appeal to a truly liberating God who doesn't change the world for their people, but walks alongside them, even through the worst and most dehumanizing of ordeals. And that history isn't my history. I love the struggle just like Alice Walker's womanist, but I engage in it as myself, a middle-aged white woman brought up with a whole lot of privilege, whose ancestors, well, they owned slaves. I may feel stung to be labeled as lavender, a pale color indeed compared to purple, but I, and we, should never forget that the purple is deeper because it has been soaked in centuries of blood. Our Grandmothers by Maya Angelou. She lay skin down in the moist dirt, the canebrake rustling with the whispers of leaves, the loud longing of hounds and the ransack of hunters crackling the near branches. She muttered, lifting her head in a nod toward freedom, I shall not be moved. She gathered her babies, their tears as slick as oil on Black faces, their young eyes canvassing mornings of madness. Mama, is Master going to sell you from us tomorrow? Yes, unless you keep walking more and talking less. Yes, unless the keeper of our lives releases me from all commandments. Yes, and your lives, never mine to live, will be executed upon the killing floor of innocence, unless you match my heart and words, saying with me, I shall not be moved. In Virginia tobacco fields, leaning into the curve of Steinway pianos, along Arkansas roads, and in the red hills of Georgia, and into the palms of her chained hands, she cried against calamity, You have tried to destroy me, and though I perish daily, I shall not be moved. No angel stretched protecting wings above the heads of her children, fluttering and urging the winds of reason into the confusion of their lives. They sprouted like young weeds, but she could not shield their growth from the grinding blades of ignorance, nor shape them into symbolic topiaries. She sent them away, underground, over land, in coaches and shoeless. When you learn, teach. When you get, give. And as for me, I shall not be moved. She stood in mid-ocean seeking dry land. She searched God's face. Assured, she placed her fire of service on the altar, and though clothed in the finery of faith, when she appeared at the temple door, no sign welcomed, Black grandmother, enter here. Into the crashing sound, into wickedness, she cried, No one, no, nor no 1,000,000 ones, dare deny me my God. I go forth alone and stand as 10,000. The divine upon my right impels me to pull forever at the latch on freedom's gate, and the Holy Spirit upon my left leads my feet without ceasing into the camp of the righteous and into the tents of the free. These mama faces, lemon yellow, plum purple, honey brown, have grimaced and twisted down a pyramid of years. She is Sheba and Sojourner, Harriet and Zora, Mary Bethune and Angela, Annie to Zenobia. She stands before the abortion clinic, confounded by the lack of choices, in the welfare line, reduced to the pity of handouts, ordained in the pulpit, shielded by the mysteries, in the operating room, husbanding life, in the choir loft, holding God in her throat, on lonely street corners, hawking her body, in the classroom, loving the children to understanding. Centered on the world stage, she sings to her loves and beloveds, to her foes and detractors. However I am perceived and deceived, however my ignorance and conceits, lay aside your fears that I will be undone, for I shall not be moved. Modern feminism's first wave, the suffrage movement, involved the pursuit of the vote for women. Well, it involved the pursuit of the vote for white women. The movement, led by women such as Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, arose alongside and within the abolition movement, which sought freedom for enslaved Black Americans. The two are entwined, in fact. The abolition of slavery and the struggle for voting rights informed and inspired one another in the liberal white societies who entered the struggle. From the 1860s to the 1890s, indeed to the 1950s, I would say, the abolition movement and the suffragist movement fell into discord. Activists like Susan B. Anthony explicitly stated that they had little time for Black men's suffrage, a battle that began the moment the Emancipation Proclamation was read out. Black women were no delicate flowers, debating women's rights over tea in the parlor. They didn't have the time, leisure, or resources to devote to their own liberation, although many found those anyway. The second wave feminism of the 50s through the 80s and 90s no longer focused on wresting the vote from men, but instead zeroed in on the ways white women could become manly and or co-opt and adopt the power of men for themselves. The focus was on women doing men's jobs, earning men's salaries, and owning men's power. Well, guess who was already doing men's jobs? They weren't earning the salaries or the power, but black women again understood the struggle for labor equity and the struggle to be heard in ways few of the white feminists of the time recognized. Once again, many white leaders of the movement tried to separate race and class from their feminism. Talking about racism and poverty and women's liberation was most often deemed too aggressive, and there was white fear that by truly advocating for all, they would dilute their own message and strength. Burning bras is useful and great, but it's also a lot easier than demanding paid family leave, subsidized childcare for working mothers, and better schools in poorer neighborhoods. In 1989, legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term intersectional feminism. White feminism, she and others asserted, didn't and often doesn't acknowledge or address the ways women of color experience sexism. In the words of one writer, it's feminism for white women who don't want to examine their white privilege. One particularly grotesque version of modern and almost always white feminism declares that only those born biologically female are really women. People who believe this way are referred to as TERFs, trans-exclusionary radical feminists. Intersectional feminism rejects this kind of purity test and welcomes all those who self-identify as women, including agender and gender-fluid folks and trans folks who are expressing themselves as femme. Intersectional feminism stands in opposition to white feminism. It takes into consideration the various power differentials which shape the sexist experiences of all women, listening to women's voices and acknowledging the various places where oppressions connect, where they intersect. This constitutes the third wave of feminism. Thus, we know that a white feminist applying for a job may experience sexism, and we know that a black woman applying for a job may experience sexism and racism, and is in fact more likely to for a variety of reasons, historical and modern. We know that every woman, every human, walks a constantly changing landscape of power and weakness. All of us carry oppressions of some kind or other. The most established and successful of white, straight, cisgender, able-bodied, affluent, well-educated men, they also carry frailties and vulnerabilities. Mental illness, childhood trauma, learning challenges, to name just a few, these are no respecters of status or skin color or genital distribution. And the most battered, brutalized, and beaten down black woman also carries her own power and strength, even if it is all channeled into the day-to-day survival of herself and her family. At the nitty-gritty heart of things, there is no perfect victim. There is no perfect oppressor. There's only us. People making choices each day about how we move through the world. People facing choices each day about the ways that the world moves through us. The good news about intersectional feminism is that it's for everyone, finally. Intersectional feminism sees the white job applicant who is also disabled or elderly or queer. It sees the black woman experiencing misogynoir, hatred of dark women, who is also broke because her ex hasn't paid child support in 5 years. The lesson here for me is that I don't need to aspire to or grab hastily for the title of womanist. My feminism burns deep and hot, fueled by my own experiences of sexism. My rejection of racism pushes me to change the world and calls me to transform it, but is fueled by compassion and empathy, not experience. I am a woman, but I am not a woman of color. Luckily, there is another name for me to claim instead: intersectional feminist. If you're a white feminist, maybe it's the right name for you too. The names and identifiers that we assign to ourselves and others have power. It can be the power to silence, the power to suppress, the power to harm, calling a black woman the N-word, calling a queer woman the F-word, calling any woman the B or C words. These names are imposed on the vulnerable by the powerful. Other names and identifiers are chosen by us. Thus, my decision to be an intersectional feminist, to label myself a straight-passing bisexual woman, to tell folks I'm an Enneagram 7, and to assume the mantle of minister, which carries with it echoes of authority once associated with men. These names are chosen by me, some because they grant me power, like minister, and some despite their vulnerability, like outing myself repeatedly, telling folks I'm a non-Christian, taking pride in and flaunting my intersectional feminism. And as you go forth this morning, I invite you to ponder deeply your own names, your own labels, self-imposed and chosen, as well as those placed upon you by the world. Talk to others around you about their experiences, and where there are relationships and friendship, talk to folks who are on the downside of the power equation about what they think of the names assigned to us by the world and ourselves. I was very glad that morning in my womanist theology class that I wasn't the one who asked, "Can a white feminist be a womanist?" But I was also very glad that the question was asked and answered, considered, discussed, chewed on. I'm glad now for the conversation, for Dr. Jones' patience and questions, and for my own willingness to resist defensiveness and actually hear the words. A lesson I've been learning from other wise women and men, thank goodness. As far as I know, this life is our only chance to have these conversations, to learn humility, to listen and to speak to other humans, and to contemplate our own spirits. The words of Black women shared with all people and focused on their own people, cultures, and experiences have been my greatest teachers in the quest to become a truly intersectional feminist. And so I leave you with one final poem, which you will recognize, also by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Is it 'cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meetings of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Let us rise. Amen.
This community is a refuge where we can keep the ember of hope alive while all the world seems intent on dousing it. Our offerings each week sustain this community so we can share our small embers to light a dark world. Please give generously so we can all together help spread that light. And join me in giving so we may continue to have a place that fortifies us in these trying times. Mail your checks to the church's address or continue your automatic payments through your bank, or go to our website, communityuuchurch.org, and click on the blue Donate Now button. Thank you. As our worship time together draws to a close, it's time now to extinguish our chalice. Please speak these words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I was going to die sooner or later, whether or not I had even spoken myself. My silences had not protected me. Your silences will not protect you. What are the words you do not yet have? What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day and attempt to make your own until you will sicken and die of them, still in silence? We have been socialized to respect fear more than our own need for language. I began to ask each time, what is the worst that could happen to me if I tell this truth? Unlike women of other countries, our breaking silence is unlikely to have us jailed, disappeared, or run off the road at night. Our speaking out will irritate some people, get us called bitchy or hypersensitive, and disrupt some dinner parties. And then our speaking out will permit other women to speak until laws are changed and lives are saved and the world is altered forever. Next time ask, what's the worst that will happen? Then push yourself a little further than you dare. Once you start to speak, people will yell at you. They will interrupt you. They may put you down and suggest it's personal. And the world won't end. And the speaking will get easier and easier, and you will find you have fallen in love with your own vision, which you may never have realized you had. And you'll lose some friends and lovers, and you'll realize you don't miss them. And new ones will find you and cherish you. And you will still flirt and paint your nails and dress up and party, because as I think Emma Goldman said, if I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. And at last you will know with surpassing certainty that only one thing is more frightening than speaking your truth, and that is not speaking. Go forth with the truth upon your tongues and open hearts and minds.